wanted to share my experience and what I learned and what I saw and what made sense to me and to my late wife in helping children with bereavement, in guiding them, assisting them, supporting them through the process and the experience. I do believe that every child is different, every family is different, every circumstance is different. However, this is what made sense to us, and this is what we saw, and this is the insights that we had, and I'm hoping that some of it might be meaningful for some of those listening and interested. But as I say, I think that's really important. I'm not saying these as absolutes. This is what we saw, and if it resonates with you, then by all means, take what you will out of it. So, my late wife Ilana was diagnosed with cancer in 1998. She was 27, and she passed away when she was 30. And our kids were aged 6 months, 2, 5, and 7, something like that. And we felt very strongly from the very beginning that it was really important to be open with them. And in retrospect, over time, that's made more and more sense to me, because I feel that for a number of reasons, but perhaps primarily is that when you're not open with kids and when you hide things from kids, kids aren't stupid. Kids are very on it, in particular when it comes to their parents. Their parents' world is their world. That's the sea they swim in. And they're very sensitive to the nuances and the subtleties. And they'll know something's going on. I don't think you can hide something big like that from kids. But if you don't tell them, they'll get nervous, they'll get worried, they'll and they have no means of finding out, or and very unlikely they'll ask, or and they'll make up stories for themselves. That's what kids do. And so and in my mind, whatever they will make up will be much worse than than the reality that's facing the family. That's just kind of, in terms of insecurity. But also, I think we wanted, and it was really important to us, that if our kids wanted to know more, the place they came to was us. We wanted them to know from us, not from other kids talking in school. We wanted them to feel comfortable having conversations with us. We wanted to feel that if they were looking for support, they could come to us. And we felt openness and honesty and straightness is what's really important. So we sat down with our kids pretty much the day after diagnosis, the elder ones who weren't that old at the time anyway. And we said to them, look, something we have to tell you, really important. Mommy has a disease. She's not well. She has something called cancer. You might have heard of it. You might not. You might hear about it from others. It is a disease that people can die from. And some people do. But we're really hopeful that that mommy's going to be okay. We've got really good doctors. We've got Hashem looking after us. And we're going to really kind of, fight this illness together and as a family. And to me, just in that as well, I do feel that what's really important with kids is not the information, but the feeling. People say, I'm not going to get divorced because of the kids, so we're going to hate each other for the next 20 years and have animosity in the home for the kids. And that doesn't make any sense to me. I feel get divorced for your kids, find a nice feeling between the two of you. That's going to be much more meaningful to your kids, the feeling of harmony, or not, if not harmony, but at least goodwill between a couple, even if they're divorced, versus the reality of frustration and upset and anger and underlying it all, bubbling under the surface over a long period. So we shared that with our kids, with that feeling of like confidence and trust, and we're going to be okay, and we're going to kind of get through this together. Don't worry. And I think our kids did really well with that. And I want to just share a story at the end, finish off with a little story. Is kind of something that really illustrated to me how well I felt they had done with this. But all throughout, it was really great because our kids did come and ask us. And if something was on their mind, they did come and share it with us, and they did have conversations with us, and we did interact and engage. And as a family, we've always been able to talk about it, and we've always felt comfortable talking about it all the way through her illness and her passing. And it's been 20 years now, but as a family, we can always have conversations around this. And there's always a comfortable feeling between us having conversations, not taboo. It's okay. It's life. It's part of life, and it's part of life's experience, and it's something that we went through and we shared together. So that to me is kind of the first thing is the feeling that you have around your kids is what really matters. Your feeling almost is their feeling. You're discomfortable, you're uncomfortable, you're frustrated, you're tense about it, you're nervous about it, they'll pick up on that. And if you're kind of okay, they'll kind of feed off that as well. But in terms of bereavement itself, when my wife passed away, I really felt strongly, even more strongly about this, that my sense of being okay with the experience, and by the way, by being okay, I don't mean it's not painful, and I don't mean there's no loss, and I don't mean there's no overwhelm, but an underlying feeling of I'm okay with all this. I felt that would be really important for them. And I do think that provided a platform for them to build off and to kind of build their own resilience around. And so, you know, I would be happy to cry in front of them. I would be happy to express how I'm feeling in front of them. I went through the process that I went through in my own mourning very publicly with them. And I think there was nothing hidden. There was nothing that I wasn't happy to share with them. And I believe that was really helpful for them. I also felt that I didn't want to send them to somebody else. I didn't want to send them to a stranger to talk about their experiences. I was hoping that they would feel comfortable coming to me, and they did. And they always did. And just a little funny story on that. The school, my son's school, my son who was 9, 10 at the time, his school insisted that you go to a therapist, absolutely insisted. I didn't want to send him, but they insisted, and I couldn't fight with them. So I sent him weekly to an art therapist. And he kind of went, and after about 10 sessions, he kind of said, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm done. And I said to the school, look, we tried it out, we did our best. And they said, okay, fine, that's good enough. But this, what was really funny is that we were once, I don't remember when this was, but when he was about 17, 18, we were sitting around as a family, sort of talking about the experiences we went through with my wife's illness and her passing. And we were all chatting, and he suddenly said, I think that whole process was really meaningful for us all, and I think we kind of all did pretty well with it. And I really respect what you as a father kind of helped us through and guided us through. He says, there's one question I've had for all these years that I just want to know, and I just want to understand. He said, why on earth did you send me to that therapist? I thought it was very cute. I thought it was very funny. I'm not saying not. Like I said from the very beginning, you got to do what makes sense to you. You got to do what you see. And I feel that very strongly as with parents. There is professional advice out there, and you might want to consider and reflect on it. But at the end of the day, nobody knows your kids better than you do. Nobody knows children better than their parents. Nobody is there intimate with them, right there, day to day, involved and engaged. And I really think that that parents should trust their own sense of their kids and their own sense of what's right for their kids and what's helpful for their kids. And then the third thing is to allow kids to go through their own process, and not to try and sort of have a sense or a definition of what they need to do or what they need to go through, or the experiences they need to have in mourning and in grieving. And so I'll just give you a little example of that. Is my can't remember the ages here, 5-year-old, I think. At the time, we were sitting shiva And I could see that he was just kind of getting on with his life and doing his own thing, and you know, kind of hanging out and seemed to be having a good time. And I felt, and I would never do this today in retrospect, but I felt like, no, 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 that's no good. He needs to have an experience of this. This is He's lost his mother. He's in denial. He's not doing what he needs to do. So I came up to him and I said to him, look, Elkanah, how you feeling? And he said, oh, I'm feeling fine, thank you. And I said, well, you sure you're feeling fine? And he said, yeah, yeah, no problems. And I said, well, is there anything on your mind? And he says, no. And I said, well, are you missing Ema? And he said, thought for a minute, he says, no, no, not really. I'm okay. So I thought, well, you know what, we've got to ramp it up, next level over here. So I said, well, you know what? I'm really missing Ema. I really miss her. So he says to me, well, uh, we got some good videos of her. Why didn't you watch the videos? And it kind of put me in my place a little bit. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess he's okay. I guess he kind of knows what he's about. And I feel like that's been true of him. And that's been true of all my kids, that they've gone through their own process in their own way. And I feel like it's not for me to dictate or define what they need to go through or what they don't need to go through. It's just to support them through whatever it is and wherever they're going. And to me, that's really been a very important part of my sort of relationship with them and supporting of them through this experience. I used to say, people used to ask me, well, how are your kids doing soon after my wife died? And I used to say, well, seem okay to me, but I guess ask me in 20 years, then I can really tell you. And it's quite funny to me now because it has been 20 years. And I suppose looking at them, I think they're pretty healthy, well-adjusted, happy kids who, you know, lost their mother, and that's definitely part of their life. And they have tremendous love for her and respect for her and recognition for her in their lives, but they also feel okay with the fact that she's not there as well. And they also feel fine about kind of what they've been through in their life and the challenge that they faced because of this. Yes, there's pain, and yes, there's loss in their hearts, and I feel that's true for all of them. But I think at the same time, they're really okay with that, and they've really learned to kind of be comfortable with that experience and that part of their life. And I just want to share just a story, just to kind of finish off, and that is just it's kind of a funny story, but I feel like it says a lot for me. And it's the story of when about 3 weeks after my wife passed away, we went to Switzerland. We went to St. Moritz. I took my kids away. It was just, the whole experience was just so utterly overwhelming and just so just painful and I can't even describe it. I really can't. Just so horrific in a certain sense. Um, and I was just totally exhausted, totally and utterly exhausted. And I felt my kids were as well. And I felt we need a break. We need to get away. So we took a 7-day trip to Switzerland, to St. Moritz. And we went with we had a nanny who was helping with the kids at the time. We had my wife's sister, who kindly stayed on after my wife passed away to help as well. We had a friend who came, who came to kind of support me through a friend from New York, a rabbi colleague who came to support me at this kind of really difficult time, and I was really grateful that he came to help. And he met us in Zurich airport. We flew into Zurich from London. He flew into Zurich from New York. We met him there, and we rented a car, and he and I were kind of the ones who were going to drive. And we both handed in our driver's license to the car rental company. And I said, well, who's going to drive first? His name was Yitz, Uncle Yitz, the kids knew him as. I said, who's going to drive first, Uncle Yitz? And he says to me, oh, you drive first, Shaul. Now, knowing Uncle Yitz as I do, and I did, that meant he doesn't want to drive at all. And I was fine with that. My head was spinning, and I was glad to have somebody else to concentrate on the driving. So we drive out of Zurich Airport and we head towards St. Moritz. And you come to a point in the drive, if you ever done that drive, where you start climbing into the Alps, and the road starts kind of, going like this, hairpin bends. and you get higher and higher and higher and higher and higher, and at every hairpin turn there is a cliff, a very steep kind of looking cliff. It's not quite straight down, but it's pretty steep down there. And you do see the odd car or two kind of stuck halfway down, which is a bit disconcerting. Um, but there's walls and stones and things just kind of stop you going over. So driving is beautiful. The Alps, just the most gorgeous, awesome scenery. And we're driving along, and there's me driving the car, and Uncle Yitz is sitting next to me. And in the middle of us is my daughter Shifra, who would have been 7 at the time, and in the back is everyone else. So driving along, the car goes really quiet. It's really serene. And suddenly my daughter says to me, Abba, what would happen if the car went over the edge? So I said to her, well, now this I'm not advising. This is what I do. It's very personal. This is kind of how I've done things with my kids. I'm not suggesting it, but this is what I said to her. I said to her, well, Shifra, if the car went over the cliff, there's 8 of us in the car, 2 people would die immediately. 2 people would die from their injuries. 2 people would have serious injuries but would survive, and 2 people would have light injuries. Now that shut her up, as you can well imagine. And the reason I do that, by the way, is because I know that's what she wants to hear. I'm telling her what she wants. She doesn't want the pussyfooting about, oh, well, we can't go over the cliff. And she's going to say, well, about there's some cars over there. Well, they were really stupid people. Well, they probably didn't think they were such stupid people. Well, there wasn't a wall there then. How do you know there wasn't a wall there then? I mean, you have a whole conversation about it and we get the same result. So I just kind of cut out the middleman. I just kind of, just kind of left it at that. And so, she goes really quiet. I go really quiet. The whole car goes really quiet because they were kind of listening to our conversation. And I started thinking, because we're talking about people dying in the car. I started thinking, if that happens to us, I want to be one of the people that dies because I really miss my wife and I want to be with her again. And I'm not death wish, but I kind of I'd like to be one of the people that dies. And I was kind of thinking that. So suddenly, Schiffer says to me, Abba, if we go over the cliff, I want to be one of the people that dies. I was like, oh my gosh. And I said, why is that, Schiffer? She says, well, because I really miss Ema and I want to be with her again. And I said to her, Schiffer, I was thinking exactly the same thing. And Uncle Yit says to me, well, Shaul, maybe I should drive the car now. It was really funny and it was very just, what's the word, comical moment. I just laughed. I just started laughing. And I was really glad he did that because it shook me out. We were getting really, really serious about ourselves, and really kind of caught up in sort of our self-pity. And I think it's never good to indulge in that. And I was indulging in it. And it was good to kind of shake out of it a little bit and say, okay, I've done that now. Yeah, I felt sorry for myself. Now let's go on with driving in the beautiful Alps and move on. But the reason I tell you that story is because I was so impressed with my daughter. I was so impressed that at that age, 7, 8 years old, I don't remember exactly how old she was, something like that. She was able to articulate that and she felt comfortable saying it. And she felt comfortable saying what was on her mind, and she felt okay to say, I want to die, and to say that I want to be with Ema again. And I really miss her. I thought those were beautiful things for a 7-year-old to express and articulate and be able to kind of share. And I do feel, I don't take credit here, but I do feel that the fact that we were really open with her, myself and my wife, and the fact that we really sort of made her feel comfortable sharing and saying what was on her mind and nothing is taboo and you can talk about anything and all my kids felt that way. I felt that was really kind of what contributed to that. And I feel allowing kids that space and giving them the comfort in that space to be able to express what's on their mind and who they are and where they are and what they're feeling and share it and have the confidence to do that. I feel that's so helpful if you can provide that platform and that space for your kids. And so to me, just to recap a little bit, who you are and your feeling is what they will feed off. And there can be pain and there can be sorrow and there can be horror, but if underlying you're okay with that, I think your kids will do well. Allow them to go through grieving in their own way. Don't think you know how they need to grieve. Trust yourself to know what's right for your kids and to know what's best for them. Yes, by all means, take professional advice, but at the end of the day, trust yourself to know what makes sense for your kids, and allowing them the space, being honest with them, and allowing them the space to be able to share and to talk. I think that is really helpful, really valuable for kids, and I think loss for children is for anybody, adults as well. I mean, I know it was harder for me or for my kids. I can't say, but it's hard for all of us. But I do think that as parents, we can be really helpful for our kids and we can support them and help make it just a much not easier, less hard experience for them.